Namaskar, Didi.
Namaskar, Narada Muni.
So tell us how you got involved with the path of bliss. What brought you to Bhava's path?
So I was a young teenager in the 70s. And from the time I was maybe 12 or 13, I had a feeling of some kind of urgency.
What
There was
country?
I was in Italy. I was born and raised in Italy.
Okay.
And there was something inside me that did not give me a peace, so to speak. I needed to find out the purpose of life and specifically what I was supposed to do with it myself. And judging from what I saw around me, I could not relate to anything. So I was born in a Catholic family, and I had been in revolt with the church as an institution since I was much younger, even. So what I felt very strongly was that I needed to apply my energies to um, to dedicate myself to some greater cause, especially one that would help alleviate the sufferings of the majority of the people in the world. And I was very keenly aware of social injustices, exploitation, and so on.
Mm.
So I spent 2-3 years like that in this inner turmoil, not really able to fathom in which direction I should move. I was very young, but I was feeling a compelling need to have an understanding of where I was going. At the same time, with this, actually, I wanted to join a revolutionary group, a radical one, in fact, because I felt only such a radical revolutionary cause would be needed, and I couldn't find anything. I was very disillusioned by what I did find. At the same time, with alongside with this burning desire for revolution, so to speak, I had a feeling which was indistinct, but on some level also very clear, that something great, a great love was missing from my life. And I couldn't understand what that could be, because I knew it was not the love of a person or for a person. I was actually surrounded by very loving people. And I believed in God. I didn't believe in anything that was church related very much at all, but I did believe in God. But I couldn't understand what this great love, where I would find it. So my agony, actually, of those years was between these two feelings. I have to engage in some revolutionary activity and find someone to do something with, and there's something calling me, and I don't understand where the call comes from, and I don't even understand what the call is about. When I was 16, on my birthday, I had passed a quiet day, and in the evening I was pondering about the years before, and how, despite my best intention to find a direction and clarity, I had been completely a failure in that. Somehow, at the end of the evening, at night, I started having a feeling of impending death. Like death was coming closer and closer to me. It was very clear, tangible. And I spent several hours that night regretting the time that I had wasted, and feeling that, well, here was the end of my life, and now I had not achieved anything, and I had wasted it. I knew it wasn't exactly my fault, so to speak, but I was feeling very disheartened. When I switched off the light to lie down to sleep, I did not expect, I did not believe that I would ever again wake up to greet another day. But somehow I thought, if there is still some time left for me, I didn't care if there was or wasn't, but I felt if there is going to be some time given to me, then I will devote it wholly to the pursuit of the truth. I slept, and I woke up timidly almost the next morning to a new day. For a few days, this feeling of death around me was very tangible, but every day that passed, it became a little bit less, and then it faded completely. So I started feeling, okay, but what is it then? It's not that I don't want to do it, I don't know how to do it. So in the meantime, I found a teacher of mine had been talking about the Enlightenment, actually.
What year is this?
Enlightenment. This is 1975.
Right.
And, Italy was very monocultural. Everyone was Catholic except like a very, unknown minority. I was born also in a very conservative city and in a very conservative family. So the idea of meditation was was almost unheard of in the yogic sense. So anyway, this teacher spoke about a state of mind that is similar to what he called Buddhahood, how humans have an inner gate that opens up to infinity, how one can connect to that source of love, of light, of wisdom, where true peace and freedom and fulfillment lie, how one can connect with it through a daily practice, the practice of yogic meditation. So when I heard this, I felt like thunderstruck somehow. It really totally captured my heart. He spoke about the need of a master, and he actually said guru. And he said also, the guru comes when the disciple is ready. So now I was set. I felt, yes, this is my path. This is what was missing. This is where I want to go. But where is the guru? Okay, I cannot bring the guru to me unless I'm ready. What do I do to become ready? I had no idea, but somehow I improvised on my own some kind of meditation techniques that I totally invented. And I started reading some books. I read books by Krishnamurti. I became clear that I was in search of my guru. That was the main point. So yes, Krishnamurti and Aurobindo, Yogananda. I read the life of Milarepa, and I felt that I belonged in this tradition, in this world, but none of them really. None of them were my guru. So it was almost a year later, I had just become 17, when through the same teacher, I was invited to a lecture that Dada Janaka was holding. When I saw him speaking, I listened to him. There was something about him that impressed me. But as you know, I was looking for my guru, and I knew that I would recognize my guru when I came across him. And looking at Dada Janaka, I didn't feel that he was the one. So anyway, I thought, let me learn meditation from him, since I didn't have a practice, and I could at least get started. So I learned meditation. I was initiated by him. At that time, there were no Didis in Italy. And at the end of my initiation, while I was leaving the room, actually putting on my shoes, I became aware that a decision had been made inside me that I had to become like him. I was going to become like him. I didn't know anything much about him. I did not know that he belonged to Ananda Marga. He didn't say anything. Bhava was in jail at that time. So Italy was very Catholic, very conservative. He just thought it wise actually to wait before explaining about Bhava. So I thought it was like a wandering monk, an itinerant monk. And these were all details about his life I didn't know, but what he had dedicated himself to, and the way he was, I felt exactly that I had to be. So it was a month later or so when I was invited to a weekend retreat. And then I found out there was a second dada even, and there was an organization. And even though I was very skeptical about organizations and institutions, everything that was done and said during the retreat, the Kiirtan, they so captivated me. I was so at home in all of that. At the end of the last day of the retreat, the dadas showed a short black and white movie where Baba could be seen walking, and they spoke about him. The Dada Janaka spoke about the Baba who was in jail, and he explained that Baba was in jail because of his views and because of his fight against social injustice, falsehood, corruption. Looking at Baba's one photo that could be shown to us, that face was so radiant and so familiar, so my own. And listening to how Baba, the Guru, was in jail, I felt I totally belong here. I totally belong to him. I totally belong to his mission. Where else would I have found the Guru, the true Guru? In a world that is run by criminals, where else would I find the true Guru if not in a dirty jail? And so from that time, I was very clear. I was 17. I just became 17. I knew my family would never could allow me to pursue my destiny as I had understood it to be. And so I kept my decision and my plans to myself. I started saving money to go to India to see Baba. All my savings or my little pocket money was saved. As soon as I became 18, I became a lefty because I wanted to experience what it is like to live like a little bit like a whole timer. And then in 1978, I was then going to training I was going to go to India to see Baba first in jail, and then to continue there, to stay there to do my training. However,
Whole-timer training.
Acharya training, whole-timer training, yes. And however, that was the time that a lot of funds were being raised for Baba's legal defense. I understood, I was very young and immature. I understood, and I was also told very little then, but we understood that there was a possibility that Baba's court case might be reviewed. So I and the other LFTs were raising funds from the Margis for it. And it struck me, I'm raising funds and I have money, the money that I saved to go to India. So I used that money and I gave it to Dada. And I thought a little bit reluctantly, I thought, okay, I do my training in Sweden, which I really didn't have much feeling for. But it was more important that my money, my little bit of money went to Baba's defense. In the meantime, shortly before, some weeks before I went to training, Baba was actually released. I had actually thought, okay, I give my money for Baba's defense. As I cannot go to India to see him, he will have to come to see me. That was such a wild idea. Baba was in jail. He would have to come out to Sweden to see me. However, this wild idea became a reality, because less than a year later, in May 1979, a part of Bhava's tour program in Europe was to visit Stockholm in Sweden. And we trainees were allowed to go there to meet Bhava. I was at the end of my training. Actually, the examiner had come and had duly, well, had actually, what should I say, had conveniently, not duly, conveniently failed all of us sisters. But it was actually due to lack of time. He had no time to continue our exams. So he passed the brothers, he failed the sisters. We went to Stockholm. We were still trainees. It didn't matter at all, actually, but it did in a way that the brothers could have PC and go on field walk with Baba, as they had just become brahmacharis, and we were still trainees. Our names were put at the end of the list of the sisters for PC. It didn't matter. Well, it did matter somehow, but it didn't matter. Baba was in Stockholm. It was May, the end of May. The atmosphere in Sweden is just so beautiful at that time in the year. It was just glorious. And one day I saw Baba's car. Baba went on field walk, and Baba's car, I just saw it disappear out of sight. And I don't know what seized me, but I started crying uncontrollably. And I was crying and crying and crying. I was crying loudly, fairly loudly, and sobbing. And some Didi Anandashubhashisha was coming and telling me things. The others were concerned. What is the matter with me? I was unconcerned with the whole world. I was just crying and crying. My crying went on for quite a while. In fact, due to my crying, I didn't even attend the examination session that was being held at that time. My crying had apparently raised some perplexity in the minds of the senior dadas and didis. There were a few didis, mostly dadas. And I came to know that later that evening, Baba said to them in a meeting that there is a kind of bhav, there is a kind of state of mind where one feels that one has come so close, physically close to Ishta, to Paramapurusha, and then all of a sudden that physical closeness is lost. And that feeling of separation is sweet, but also grieves a great distress. He named this bhav, and he said that was my bhav while I was crying. When I came to know of it, I don't remember. Baba came to me, somebody told me this later, maybe the day after. And when I thought of it, I realized, this is why I was crying. Because I was so absorbed in this crying that I had no comprehension, no real idea what it was. So I could recognize it, yes, seeing Baba's car leaving, like a child, like a baby that sees mother going out of the room and is not sure if or when she will come back. So the next day, I had the grace to join Baba in the field walk. Somebody had given my name to be added to the list. We were a fairly large group, and we were taken to a place which was truly idyllic. A forest path, which was like a wooden path, and man-made wooden path. And immediately I understood that my chance of walking to either side of Baba did not exist, basically. And so I quickly made a plan that I would walk right behind him. And I thought, yes, right behind him. I loved it. I will walk right behind him. And even when the path becomes so narrow that only he can walk, I will still be right behind him. So I had my privileged position that apparently other people did not really care to share with me. I was very, very close to him, very close behind him. We sat someplace, and Baba spoke some things also, while he was sitting, also on the way back. And as Baba returned at the end of the walk, as we were returning with him, I saw that the little flowers that I had gathered in the training center to thread into garlands to offer to Baba there, they were growing abundantly. And I felt I wanted to collect them to give them to Baba. So I stepped out of the path and I became busy collecting some of these flowers. When I returned to walk, I found that I was far behind. And even then I hurried up. Baba was quickly coming to where the car was. I was a little bit disappointed that this had happened somehow, but yeah, I was a little bit disappointed. But Dada Ramananda was holding the door of the car, and Baba was apparently just going to walk into the car when suddenly he turned around and walked back in the direction from where we had come. And I think people were just taken by surprise, and nobody moved, only he walked back. And then as he walked back, I came to be near him, and I also walked back with him, and I walked a few steps, I think 2 or 3 maximum. And then again, silently, Baba turned around again and walked to the car and into the car. As I saw Dada Ramananda's expression on his face as he was looking at me, I then only then I realized what had really happened. The next day was the last day, and we were actually the last ones to have personal contact. During personal contact, well, I have to say one thing, that in those days while Baba was there, I looked at him and I saw I was absorbed in him, but I found it very interesting when I overheard my trainee sisters who said, talking with one another, they said, "Oh, doesn't Baba look divine?" And they each said, how divine Baba looked. And I thought, that's interesting, because I don't see that particularly. And then I thought, okay, Baba is just playing with my mind somehow. But as I entered Baba's room to go to personal contact, the moment I stepped in there, the whole atmosphere was filled. Every particle that existed in that space was radiating divine glory. Baba looked so divine to my eyes then, and always did ever after. I was like completely speechless. Baba was asking questions, sometimes also looking at me. I could not give an answer ever. I was just looking at him. I remember, however, some of the things that Baba said, and both things that Baba said impacted me very strongly. One especially was a blessing when he said, especially looking at me, he said, "Your life will be full of sufferings and hardships. And while overcoming them, you will open the path for others to follow." And then he repeated, "You will open the path for others to follow, so that those who come behind will find their journey smoother."
That's beautiful.
This has stayed, yes. And this, some people have told me, "Oh my goodness, Baba said that, your life will be full of sufferings and hardships." It totally suited my psychology. But also, whenever I later on found myself in some kind of disheartened, distressed condition and suffering, feeling suffering in my life, I remember these words, and immediately, of course, I think, yes, it's just as it is supposed to be, as just as Baba wanted it. So everything is in order. It's it's going as he planned it. And the point is that he said, and by overcoming them, the sufferings and hardships, so I am destined to overcome them. He said it, So I found that was a blessing. So yes, the next day, early in the morning, Baba left. I realized then what I had heard from one senior dada in the years before, when I was a lefty. He used to say, "Oh, I have not met Baba for so long. It is so painful." And one day I said to him, "We had not met Baba even once. What should we say?" And he said, "You don't know. If you meet him once, then it's very difficult not to be with him again." After that time in Stockholm, as Baba left, I fully felt the same. And somehow in the meantime, I had, surprisingly in a way, passed my exam, and I had been declared, whole-timer brahmacharini, and gotten my posting that Baba himself gave, and that was going to be Singapore. And in those days, money, I was very young. We didn't know how money will be collected, who will be able to see Baba again, when, how. So I was again feeling very distressed that I wasn't going to see Baba. Who knows when I would be seeing Baba? My sector were not, my authorities were not in the position of communicating with me in Manila sector, much less to send me a ticket to go there. And so in the meantime, I was thinking all the time, when can I see Baba again? When can I see Baba again? Anyway, in the month of August, a couple of months later, it was arranged. In Berlin sector, some people arranged that I could fly to Bangkok. So I flew to Bangkok with a young dada who was also going to be posted there. And as the plane began to descend, looking down at this very unfamiliar environment, I felt some sense of apprehension. I thought, oh, I don't know anybody in this part of the world. Everything is completely unknown to me. I had lived a very sheltered life before I became a lefty, and so we arrived, and this dada was older, and thank goodness that he had taken some responsibility to be in charge of me. And he said he went to make a phone call there at the airport, and when he came back, he told me, "Take Guru Mantra." And I thought, oh, what's coming? I did. And he said, "Baba is arriving here in a few minutes."
Wow.
Indeed, Baba was supposed to have gone on tour to the east, Manila sector, and then some other places some time before, but somehow he had delayed it. And so finally he did come, and he did come at the time when we had come. We were very few. Well, we joined the few dadas and didis and margis that had assembled there to welcome Baba. And the VIP room was had been arranged, and not much preparation could be made because it was almost it was not known much ahead of time for sure that he was going to come that day. So even I ended up giving my blankets to spread on the seat where Baba would sit. That day, I thought how on that day I had believed that I didn't know anybody in that part of the world, and I was feeling so apprehensive. And I left the airport in Baba's company. This was such an incredible grace that Baba gave me. I had not yet reached my field, and Baba was just there, escorting me, actually, accompanying me. The days in Bangkok, I was, I think, supposed to be there a couple of days. There were very few Margis in Bangkok. There was none, in fact, and some Margis from Malaysia and Singapore had come. And you know, my brain was unable to adjust. I think if somebody hears that they have won a lottery, you know, they are unable to adjust, like their nervous system goes berserk. My brain cells had been unable to adjust to this, to the immensity of this situation that I was in. Suddenly, in Baba's presence, suddenly I'm leading kaoshikii in front of him. Suddenly I am in the workers' meeting, even though I had not yet reached the field. But it was just so intense and so like, it was as if I didn't have any program because I had not prepared myself for any of that. And the only program was what Baba put in me in that time. And I don't know if we had one or two workers meetings. These were the sweetest workers meetings ever for me because I had no responsibility yet. I had not even reached my field. But Baba made it clear every time I had a question, every time something had been left pending while I was talking with somebody, Baba addressed that concern during the meeting. There was something that Baba said to the young brahmacharis that were posted to the sector, two of them. To one, he said, you will be my Sanskrit teacher. As Baba was talking a lot about language, and Baba was saying, Baba doesn't know anything. Baba doesn't know Sanskrit. And then he said, you know, in jest, he told to one dada, and you will be my Sanskrit teacher. And then while speaking about Latin and the Italian language, in fact, Baba looked at the other one and said, you will be my Latin teacher. Somehow, I knew that, you know, like, you know, Baba said it, and the two dadas were saying, no, Baba, we don't know anything. Somehow I developed a complex. I don't know what you might call it. The thought was obsessing me. Why didn't Baba choose me also to be one of his teachers? Why only these two? Why not me? Granted, I don't know anything, but neither do they. Anyway, I was trying to banish this thought from my head, but it kept coming back. The next day, Baba left to go to Manila. And he had said that if anybody else would go to Manila, apart from his entourage, they should not fly on the same flight. So some of us were trying to catch a flight a few hours later when we actually found that Baba had been returned. Baba had been flown back from Manila to Bangkok. I was extremely happy because I didn't have, for whatever other practical reasons, it was very, very perfect for me. So now Baba had been hosted. The hosts were the family of Sri Shambang from India and his wife, Shobha Didi. That's where the darshans had taken place. And after Baba came back, somehow they did not feel it convenient to have so many dadas and a few of us Didis. We were only two Didis with Didi Anandashubhashisha 3. They did not wish that we should be there. The programs were over, the darshans were over. So, however, I found that it was not acceptable for me that Baba would be there and we would not be able to go and be with him or to be there around him, waiting for him to call us. somehow I managed to find a way to have access into the house, and nobody objected to me being there. And due to a series of circumstances, I was actually asked to be there. I was the only Didi, apart from Didi Anandashubhashisha then, and there was a need for somebody to help in the kitchen and do some other things, as Shobha Didi had injured her hand. So then that was wonderful. There were so few people in the house: Bhava, Dada Ramananda, Didi Anandashubhashisha, and the family, and myself. So this went on for a few days, as Baba was, the plan was to go to Taiwan, and visa was being applied for. And I was praying that this visa would be delayed as long as possible. And I think it lasted for about 4 or 5 days. So then it was such a sweet atmosphere, even though I didn't get to see Baba. One day I was washing Baba's clothes. It is known that Baba's clothes carried this fragrance from his body. So there was a black spot near the pocket of his upper garment, and I was trying to remove it. I was doing it carefully, I thought, but at some point the cloth tore. And I felt so distraught by that. Oh my goodness. Anyway, I thought, well, it would, when Didi Anandashubhashisha irons it, she will see, and she will either discard it or do the needful. However, when I saw Baba wearing that, as he came down from the stairs, he was looking at the steps, and I was just at the foot of the stairs and looked at him and instantly became aware of the tear that I had caused. And he was wearing that. I was so afflicted by that. That same moment, Baba looked at me with such a reassuring smile, such an affectionate, all-embracing smile. And the message that he didn't speak verbally, but that came immediately to my heart was, I can take anything from you. These little encounters that passed totally unnoticed to other people who were with us. They're so meaningful. It created such a, Baba really drew me into a bond of love that is unbreakable because of him, because of his grace. One day, as he was on his way out of the house to go on a field walk, and when Dada was waiting for him there, Baba stopped by Shobha Didi and me, and then looking at me, he said, "And you, little girl, can you do kaoshikii?" So when I replied yes, as he continued to walk, he said something loud enough to be partly heard. And what he said later was told to me was, then I can learn kaoshikii from her. And this was, I had pestered him in my mind about making him one of his teachers, and I felt so terrible about that. I thought I really pestered him with this childish, silly nonsense. But the words he said were again so meaningful for me.
And
when
touching.
Baba left us. Yes, because, and also I realized, since I am no teacher, I was no teacher of kaoshikii, certainly, I realized that I then have to practice it and explore the practice very deeply in order to begin to qualify even with grace marks. So the fateful day came when Baba had to leave. He was going to go to Taiwan, and the night before, I actually was told that I could sleep there in the house. And we went to the airport. There were very few of us, apart from the entourage with Baba. And while most the dadas and the Didi went to check in, we sat. It was three of us with Baba. We sat, and Baba was in his typical inimitable mood of entertaining us with such delightful words. At some point, when I saw the dadas and the Didi coming, I somehow mistakenly thought that it's time is up. Baba has to go, and so instantly I rose to my feet. And then I realized that Baba is still sitting there. Everyone is wherever they are. No one is moving. And I was facing Baba. Baba asked what my posting was. Then he said something to Didi Anandashubhashisha about my duty. And while he was telling her that, I was standing there in front of him, and I saw with the corner of my eye that my body was standing there, but actually I was sitting on his lap.
Wow.
I cannot say how long this lasted. I think it was a few seconds, but for me it was eternity. Somebody came and broke the spell, so to speak. So these were the last moments before Baba flew to Taiwan.
How did you feel? How did you feel when he left? The day after, did you feel great sadness? And the others, did they talk about him?
Well, the day after Baba left, or even on that same day, Dada Maheshwarananda and I, we both left Bangkok on the way to Singapore. He was escorting me, and he was a great caretaker, by the way. And I felt the whole time that I was like swimming, rather I was immersed in an ocean of divine nectar. Baba had intoxicated every particle of my being, and this one time of maybe 6 or 7 days that I spent in Bangkok so intimately with him, such a unique experience. He really shaped my life in that time. One episode I like to tell. These were the years, the early 80s, later on, when Baba was collecting plants. And once when I was in India, I was leaving the next day with another Didi, and Baba said, if anyone is leaving tomorrow, they should take a plant from my garden. So then we were told to go to Lake Gardens late in the evening, and we each received a plant. It was maybe about 15 centimeter tall. The aerial part was extreme. They were both very verdant and very full of life. We took a rickshaw to go to the Didi's quarters. In the poorly lit streets, we did not see very much what was happening, but when we got off the rickshaw under the lamp, in the street lamp, we were both astonished to see that our plants seemed totally dead. They had collapsed completely. And this was like within minutes. I put the plant, I tried to do Kiirtana, we do whatever it was. No, they never revived. And I was wondering, Baba had, there was a system before that we were given the plants. We had to fill in so many details, so much information in a logbook, who we were, our posting, where we were going to take the plant, if the place was owned or rented, who was going to take care. And I felt, oh my goodness, such responsibility. Baba took so much care for the plants, as he did for every one of us. And well, they were dead. And I've been wondering later, what type of mysterious reason there was why these plants had to be given to us to meet their death in our hands. But it was his, he was orchestrating his Ota and Prota yoga. He was in touch with everyone and connecting everyone who needed to be connected to. There's one experience that I'd like to, well, there's the Dharma Samiksa. That time was my Dharma Samiksa was very eventful. It was early on in the days of Dharma Samiksa when the name was not yet given. And Baba actually surprised me by, after he asked me, if people knew what you have done in the past, should they respect you or hate you? When I heard the word hate coming from Baba's lips, I was stunned. I was very young and I could not understand what Baba was referring to, so I did not readily answer. I didn't have an answer. Baba repeated the question, and when I timidly said, no, they should not respect me, because I wasn't ready to say they should hate me. I had not understood the reason for it. Then Baba, in a very solemn way, said, yes, they should hate you. And I was already stunned from the question. And when Baba uttered those words, my mind, my whole being exploded into the universe instantly, silently, and went to feel the corners of whatever. I remained in that condition of mindlessness and expansion for however long, maybe fractions of seconds, until Baba asked me, affectionately said something to me. Then Baba looked at my body, scanned my body as he did, from head to feet, and mentioned that I had a slight disease. Again, I didn't know what he was referring to, and again he repeated that I had a slight disease, and he gave a prescription in Bengali to Didi Anandashubhashisha, who was writing down the details of what I should do. In that moment, I was standing there in front of him, not even trying to understand what he was saying because of the Bengali language. And I was feeling that Baba, with this blow and with whatever he did, he had cleared from my path all the obstacles that were supposed to be on my way. And he had left me with the optical delusion that they were there. I felt so, I cannot describe it. It was, I felt that there was no power, no force in this whole universe that could stop or interrupt my movement. I had this feeling of invincibility. I was feeling that I was walking in space like a cheerful child, like the child of the universe, like the single child of the universe, the single existence. And I was totally overwhelmed with this. At the end of it, when I left, it took a few weeks before I returned to the field. And every crossing of a border, 3 of them, was going to be particularly risky for me. And I crossed each border not by design, just by accident, so to speak, on a Sunday, for 3 Sundays. And Baba had told me to actually take that medicine before sunrise in the next 3 following Sundays. It was only at the end of the 3rd Sunday, when I reached my destination safely, that I realized in the 3 next following Sundays, Baba opened my path. Every time I took this medicine.
Did you know what he is referring to when he is asking you why people should hate you?
No.
Oh.
No, I did not know. And I did not know. I had no idea.
Maybe past life.
So one episode I'd like to share is that of the dancing of Kiirtan. I think it was in the early or mid 80s that we sisters from outside India were used to dancing Kirtan with the brothers alongside together in the machakras and programs. And in India, it was not. We were not allowed to do that. We had this conversation amongst ourselves, Didis, non-Indian Didis, other times, but this one time, as we met in Calcutta during the MC time, a few of us made a plan that we were going to do it because it seemed it seemed unreasonable. There was no reason why not. After all, Parvati, Shiva's spouse, had given Lalita Marmika. Why shouldn't we be allowed to do it? The Didis, the Indian Didis, were very discouraging of it. And however, we decided that during a morning darshan, at the end of a morning darshan, we would stand up and do kirtan while Baba was leaving, as typically the dadas would stand up and dance. When the time came, we were maybe 6 or 7 of us Didis, and we were scattered. We were not a unified group. I remember that I began to stand up, but it was daunting. There were thousands of people there. There was no one that was encouraging us, rather the opposite. The only thing was that I felt deeply within me that it should be done. So as I began to stand up, I had not straightened myself all the way up. That I and the others also, the other Didis also, we were all a little bit hesitant, I guess. And we heard Baba, who was leaving the dais, saying something. Oh, I had no idea to this day what was that sentence that Baba said in Bengali. But the sound of his voice was more than enough, and we instantly returned to the floor. Came back to our rooms, crestfallen and humiliated and, dejected. But we, what to do? One Didi Anandagita passed by and saw us, and while walking past, she said, if you have a plan to do something, then do it. And we started discussing that the reason that Baba was annoyed with us was not because of our daring action, but it's because we were not daring enough. And so we decided that we were going to do this the next day. And the next day we were daring enough. And we stood up and we kept standing, and Baba Baba did not react. It's as if it had always been done. There was nothing unusual. Normal. And so from that time, yes, totally normal. So from that time, then we knew that we could do kirtan.
You're the pioneers of sisters doing kirtan at Baba's DMC.
Others had tried before singly, but not in Baba's presence, I suppose. And of course, there were always those Indian sisters who go into a deep bath and will be dancing. Okay, so why not we? It's very interesting to see, to understand, rather to realize where true propriety actually lies.
It's great what you did, Didi.
And I love that Baba gave us the courage to do this, because the main point was not what other people thought, but if Baba would disapprove of us, that we didn't want to create Baba, to cause Baba's displeasure. So that was the point. And I guess lastly, if I may, I'd like to narrate what happened in 1979. I went to India at the end of it, of the year, for a junior RDS. And at that time, Baba did not hold any organizational meetings with us, which was, I suppose, unusual. It was for me, at least. But the atmosphere was so sweet, so sweet. One brother was playing Kiirtana, and he was so in such a devotional flow all the time that his Kirtan tune, mainly one, was reverberating in the air. There was something special about those days. One day, I received a message indirectly from a Didi. It was an organizational message, she thought, but for me, it was a deeply personal message. She didn't know about it. Well, somebody said a few days later, Baba, RDS is over. Actually, we had not even begun. RDS is over, and Baba will sit. Baba will maybe give a chance to be garlanded this evening by those who had come to attend the RDS. However, we Didis had received the information so late, not because it was not anybody's fault, actually, but we could not procure a garland for ourselves, garlands. So in the evening, the dadas were all having their garlands, and we 5 Didis didn't have any. So that was quite a predicament, what to do. We were very disheartened. One dada really generously gave his own garland to all of us. But what would one garland do for 5 of us? Anyway, we were told to go and do meditation in the Dharma Chakra Hall in Tirjua, upstairs in Baba's quarters. And it wasn't sure that Baba would come to take the garlands. That meditation and the atmosphere, Baba must have sent such special waves of grace. There was such an otherworldly, heavenly, I might say, vibration that everyone seemed to have really gone deep in their meditation. When later in the night, actually, one dada came to say, no, Baba has returned to his room. There's no chance to give a garland. It seemed that not only I, but others were reluctant to stop their meditation. The next day, we were told it's very unlikely that Baba will accept garlands. But we were, at least, we tried, and we all got our garlands together. Baba, however, did come and sat there, and we were allowed to personally garland him and do pranam. Baba spoke about the WWD master unit at that time, and amongst other things, he said how it is necessary that the WWD master units become financially self-sufficient. So that was it. The atmosphere was very, very light-hearted, very joyful, carefree, I would say, very, very sweet and carefree. Then I left. I didn't know then, but that was the last time I saw Baba. And then when almost a year later, Baba left his physical body, coming back to this last encounter with him, which was so unusual. The message, the encoded message that he sent me, the kirtan, the garland, that he gave me the chance to put a garland around his neck at the time of parting and to give my final pranam. how Baba orchestrated everything to take leave in the sweetest, in the most loving way. Thinking of that leaves me, I get a feeling of an embrace. I'm held in an embrace, and I feel that he has left me with that embrace, and that embrace is everlasting.
So sweet, Didi. Well, that was both very interesting, very sweet and inspiring, Didi. Thank you very much for sharing that.